Now let's learn how to take files from Bridge into Photoshop. And I mentioned it earlier that if you double click on an image, it will launch into Photoshop, where image, it's going to just show you your preview here. So by single clicking, I am able to see a bunch of these photos, and I'm looking for one that's a little bit bigger than the rest. These are all pretty small. Well, there's one that's slightly bigger. Let's all go to Calm Lake, Michigan and double click on it. And like I said, that's going to launch us into Photoshop. So we should see Photoshop thinking about it. Normally it pops right to that screen, but of course I'm having a few technical glitches, so we'll see if it works. I do see my cursor, is thinking about it. So there we go. We are now in Photoshop. And I want to start by showing you just the workspace. And hopefully I don't want you to get overwhelmed. Again, this can be confusing because behind it still is Bridge. And if you happen to be active in Bridge, your top menu bar will say things about Bridge. However, we're now in Photoshop. If you're on a PC, you won't have this. It's a little bit less cumbersome. So I'm in Photoshop, and here's my Photoshop bar. So let's just tour the workspace here. The first thing that we're going to see over here on the far left is our menu bar, and you can undock it if you want. I don't. I like having it over here on the left. But this is our tools panel, not a menu bar. Good grief. This is our tools panel. And these are all the different tools that we're going to learn about. Oh, we're crying out loud. Okay, if you ever do that, if you can't find something, go to the window drop down and you will see all of the different options, the tool presets, the tools here. Because there's no check mark, I somehow managed to wipe them off. These are all good glitches that I'm glad I'm practicing for you. So all I'm really trying to do is move this sucker around like I just did. The double arrow and the single arrow, let me show you that while that's working. If you have limited space and you can't see all the way down to the last item in your toolbar, you might want to go with a double stacked bar. That's your option. And what I want to do is just get this anchored to the left side again, not up here covering up the word Lake Michigan. So I'm just going to come over to the left side and let go. And then I am going to take it back down to a single toolbar. So we're going to learn about these as we go, but we have the move tool, the marquee tool, the lasso, yada, yada, yada. And any tool that has a little triangle in the corner means that there's more tools nested underneath it. And if you click and hold that, it will fly out into the other options that are nested below it. So this is what we call the toolbar on the left. The other item is the option bar, and that's right up here at the top, and that changes based on what tool you have chosen. So right now, I have the marquee tool chosen, and I'm seeing options that are specific to the marquee tool. If I go down to the letter T, which is our text tool, and I click on that, you can see that my option bar changed to be things that are specific to the text tool, such as what font, what size, what color, that type of thing. If I switch to the gradient tool, I can now see that my option bar is specific to gradients. What color gradient, what way is it radial or left to right, etc. So always be aware of what tool you're using and what you can do to customize it in the option bar. Then we have panels. And depending on what workspace you're in, you're going to see different panels. This is the character panel and the paragraph panel nested together. I have a color and swatch panel nested together up here. I have properties and adjustment panel, and I have my layers, channels, and paths panel. Underneath the window drop down, you're going to see the word workspace. And the essentials is the one that we're defaulted to and we should all be using. However, if you knew you were going to be doing a lot of web work, or let's say painting, that's pretty unique, you could switch to the painting workspace. And what that would do is that it preloads a different workspace for you. Notice it preloaded my swatches, which is great, but it also preloaded brushes, knowing that if you're painting, you're going to use these a lot. So all of these different items are available for you under this. Notice brushes is turned on, layers, and swatches. And that's what comes with the painting workspace. If we go back to the Essentials workspace, we can see that we have character, color, layers, properties. And all of those are turned on. So if you wanted your history window to show, you would just put a check mark here, and here it is. We see our history panel. So panels are movable, customizable. They can have different tabs within them. I could take this history tab if I wanted to, and I could drag it and dock it in here so that it's one of 3 options available to me here. This whole workspace is very customizable. You can undock things as well, like you just saw me do. I redocked it, but if I wanted my layers panel to be out here free floating by itself, I can drag it out here and do that. If I prefer my layers panel to be always floating out here and my history panel to be always floating out here, and I like to see everything else as it is, I can actually set up my own custom workspace. And I can do that in the window here where it says Workspace, and I can say New Workspace. And when it pops up, I can call it Brenda, because it's my favorite. If I want to save the panel locations, I would click on what I want saved also. These 3 things are optional, but by clicking Save, I now should have a custom workspace called Brenda, and that's the one that it's using. Essentials, again, is where I want you to all switch back to and make sure that you're in the Essentials workspace. And if it doesn't change or it looks goofy like mine does, I probably want to go and say Reset Essentials down here. There we go. Now everything's stacked back to the way it was originally. So those are our different workspaces. Real quickly, I just want to go through 2 more things before the end of this chapter, and it's how we navigate around an image. The zoom tool. In your toolbar, it's at the very bottom, and it looks like a magnifying glass. So I'm going to click on that, and we're going to activate the zoom tool. There are several ways to zoom around, and frankly, this is about the least step and pick a new tool. However, once you get the zoom tool, you notice that your cursor changes and it has a little plus inside of it. So if I click once, I'm going to zoom in. Twice, notice also I can tell what magnification I'm at by looking up here at the top left where the file name is followed by the percentage. And the zoom level is also shown in the lower left corner down here, 200%. So as I continue to click, I'm zooming in. Notice I'm starting to see pixelation, and it's pretty ugly. How do you zoom out, you ask? Well, once my beach ball stops spinning here, there we go. To get the zoom tool to behave in the opposite direction, to zoom out, there's a keyboard shortcut. It's Option on a Mac or Alt on a PC. Notice when I hold that down, it changes to the minus sign. And as long as I'm holding down my Option key and it's still a minus sign, I'm zooming out. Also notice that it did switch over here. When I hold down the Option or Alt key, it automatically switches here. If I didn't want to hold a keyboard shortcut, I could manually switch it up here and then start doing the zoom out. The default is always that it behaves as a zoom in, so I like to just leave it on zoom in. Okay. Scrubby zoom. Let's see if this is working. Yep. What I'm doing right now is I'm holding down my mouse key, my click key, holding it down, and I'm moving my mouse up and down or left and right. And that is the scrubby zoom. So it's zooming in at different variations. Here's 93%. Something that you might want to always be aware of, things might look good at 100 or at whatever view you're on right now, but you always have to make sure that the print size also looks good. So I right-clicked here and I say print size, and it goes to 100%. I see it down there and I see it up here. I could also say fit on the screen, and that's going to shrink it to 88% to fit on my particular screen at this time. So by right-clicking, you can see all of these options as well. So that's zooming. The hand tool, let's get zoomed in a little bit here. And you go, oh shoot, what I want to see is over here on the right further, so I guess I have to use these scroll bars. No, you don't. The hand tool is an awesome tool, and the easiest way to get it without actually changing tools is to just hold down the space bar on your keyboard, and your icon automatically turns into a hand as long as you're holding the space bar. So hold down the space bar, and then with your mouse, click and drag to move around your image. Just click and drag. So it's kind of like you're using your hand and placing it on top of the picture and just pushing it around your desk or your table. As long as I'm holding the space bar, this works without me switching tools, and when I let go of the space bar, I'm right back at the last tool I used, which in this case was the zoom. Take it back to fit on the screen. So the hand tool allows you to move around, which is really helpful. There's one last tool that, to be honest, I've never used because there's so many other ways of doing it, but it's called the Rotate View tool. So over in our toolbar, depending on, yours probably looks like this. It just has the hand. If you wanted to specifically go and get the hand tool, this is where you get it. But like I said, you're usually doing something else at the time. You're usually in a different tool, and you just want to use the handle temporarily, and that's when holding the space bar is easiest. But you can always come and get the hand tool specifically from the toolbar. Nested underneath it, if you hold down to get this flyout, we have the Rotate View tool. So let's switch to that, and you can see the little tipping arrow. To do this, you simply click and drag. I have a little bit of a lag, and this is going to show tip it on your view. Now it's only going to change the view on your screen. It's not actually going to rotate the final image for real. So if for any reason you want to rotate your actual view on the screen, this is the tool that you would use. However, I don't see that happening much. Rather than just guessing and dragging like I was doing, you can also come up to the toolbar and you can say, show me this at -15 degrees by typing that in. Or you can pull around this little, oh gosh, it's kind of like a clock hand, and you can pull it around and tip to the various views. I'm going to go with reset back to 0 because none of that was anything I really wanted to do. So there you have it. We have made it through chapter 1 in our book, showing you in general how things work. And in the next videos, I'm going to explain your homework very specifically.